What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for yet another Tottenham update going into the last 24 hours of Tottenham Hotspur news. And first up, we're going to be talking about Japhet Tanganga, as Dan Marsh broke that Millwall have agreed a deal with Tottenham to sign Japhet Tanganga on a permanent basis. Now down to the Lions to agree personal terms with the 25-year-old centre-back, but they are expecting others to be in the frame too. And Fabrizio Romano did confirm that, saying Millwall have agreed a deal to sign Japhet Tanganga on a permanent basis. There's a green light from Tottenham as they want to sell him. It's now up to the player for personal terms to make the deal happen, as Daniel Marsh reported. There's no reports of the fee or anything like that. With him having 1 year left in his deal, I can't imagine it being anything above 5 million or anything like that.
Well, the fact that Tottenham have agreed, it must be a decent fee. Maybe with the fact that he only has a year left in his deal, that would be a decent fee. I guess 5 million for, to be fair, a player who hasn't really performed.
That's just speculation, though. I don't know.
Or whatever it is, a fee for a player who hasn't really performed regularly at the top level, to be honest. So I'm really happy for him that he's found a home at Millwall. They seem to love him there. He seems to really like being there. It was really great seeing him with a smile on his face in the post-season awards and him getting all the love and appreciation from his teammates. So it seems as though it's a situation where maybe he can finally start building his career now. And obviously he would probably want ambitions to be back in the Premier League, but the fact that he's performing regularly now, even though he isn't in the Championship, is positive. So he should see it as a step in the right direction. Yeah,
and it's also, it might not end up being Millwall because, as he said, other clubs are interested as well. Do you think that maybe he could get better than Millwall?
Probably. I would like to think, considering not so long ago, teams like AC Milan were in for him and other Premier League teams were in for him. So I wouldn't be surprised if a top-end Championship team comes in for him and they think he can be of service. But I don't think I'll rush into any deal just yet if I was him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he does end up at Millwall.
But it's nice to see, obviously, a Tottenham Academy graduate finally having a good time of it, albeit in the Championship. We have seen good performance of him in the Premier League as well, but we just never saw it on a consistent basis with the injuries as well that always plagued his time at Tottenham. But any money that comes in will be pure profit, seeing as he is from the academy. Next up, let's talk about Mano Solomon, as Paul O'Keefe says that any bid for Mano Solomon this summer will be considered by Tottenham Hotspur.
Doesn't surprise me, because I, for one, haven't been fully convinced he's the answer for our left wing. Albeit he is unlucky because he hasn't played much this season, so there's not much to go on. He hasn't had too many chances to prove himself. But his injury record is been terrible for a while. It isn't the first time he's picked up serious injuries. And when he has been on the pitch, he was decent, but nothing to me suggesting that we have to keep him by any means necessary. I was not really on board with signing him in the first place. I thought it was a deal which was unnecessary, and it was a deal which clogged up the forward options when we could be going for better options, in my opinion. So I think it's right to consider offers, in my opinion, but it begs the question why sign him in the first place if that was the case.
Yeah, we know why we signed him in the first place. It was a freebie, Daniel Levy trying to take advantage of that Ukraine situation that arose about, saying any player can leave for free if you're a foreign player. We all know he was going to be circling around, and he did, and he went for Mano Solomon. I think that he had a positive start to life at Spurs. You think about that performance against Burnley. Yes, it was against Burnley, a team that are relegated now. But you look at the sample size of him in a Spurs shirt, you're talking about 5 games in total and 1-2 starts, if that. So there's not much of a sample size. I think he hasn't had a fair crack of the whip, but I can understand the situation if Spurs want to consider bids for him, because we need guys that are fit, firing, available, and we need the quality level to dramatically increase in the forward line as well. So Mano Solomon, as much as he did have a positive start, I'm looking at the quality of the forwards that we do have, and I don't think he's any better than anyone that has been playing right now. So we do need better than Mano. In terms of a squad filler, I can take him maybe, if he can put these injuries behind him, I would take him as like a backup option. But with him never available and him essentially being injured since October last season, he had major injury problems as well. I think it probably is best to just part ways this summer, and any money that you do get on him as well is going to be profit.
And I don't think we've seen anything from his career to suggest that if we stick with him, he's going to be the answer anyway, even if he does get fit. I thought at Fulham, again, he was recovering from injury, but I thought he flattered to deceive at Fulham. I know he scored a few decent goals, but I thought after a splurge of goals, he lost his place in the team. And so for me, if we're looking for players to really take us to the next level. I'm just not convinced Solomon's that player.
Yeah. And it's funny, actually, I was at a gig once and I bumped into these Fulham fans and this was just after we signed him, and I was like, oh, we've just signed Mano Solomon. What do you think about him? And they were like, I'm so glad he took him off. Well, we didn't take him off his hands, but they weren't very happy with him and they weren't convinced. Like he should be re-signed for Fulham. So that's just some random drunken Fulham fans. But anyway, let's talk about potential striking options for this summer. Paul O'Keefe has given us an update and he says, Spurs will look for a number 9 next season, and among those under consideration are Santiago Jimenez, Ivan Toney, Sergio Guirassy, Luis Openda, Gyokeres as well. And he says Dominic Solanke is another striker under consideration as a possible target. However, Alexander Isak is too expensive for Spurs. And if you said Alexander Isak's too expensive, I mean, I think Gyokeres is probably going to go for a similar amount that they want for Isak.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what his release clause is, but obviously Sporting, being a team in Portugal, I don't know what their finances are compared to Newcastle. We know Newcastle probably, there's a lot of talk about them having financial issues. They might be forced to sell. But, I mean, I'll be shocked if Isak is not more expensive than
100 million.
Yeah, but are they going to demand that the release clause, someone bids 80? Will they accept it? I don't know. Obviously, he has been in unbelievable form. I don't know if there are any pressure to sell. So maybe they'll just say they will demand the release clause. Maybe they'll demand it with add-ons included. I feel like with Isak, it's going to be over 100 million surely for him. I'd think, given his quality. But then again, he does have an injury record, doesn't he, Isak? Only played 23 games this season, last season as well. He picked up quite a serious injury. So maybe that's something that Newcastle or buyers will consider when going for him. But I'm not convinced they'll be forced to sell Newcastle, in my opinion. So I don't know. But yeah, I think he is going to be over 100 million. I am happy that we're looking at strikers, and that list, to be honest, that list is like, you could probably pick out a number of clubs and that'll probably be their list. So it's not a surprise that those are all pretty obvious names, I would say. One thing that Paul O'Keefe also did say was quite interesting is he wouldn't rule out Tottenham signing 2 strikers if Richarlison leaves, which is interesting. So I guess keep an eye on that one. In terms of the options, obviously they're all good options. What's interesting is Gyokeres and Openda are 2 options that are just finishing their first season. So will them two be too difficult to get out of their respective clubs? I don't know how much Tottenham are going to be willing to spend on a striker. I'm guessing that goes up if Richarlison leaves. Who are the other ones? Toney, like him, good player, would fit the system. Question marks about his attitude, but I do like him.
Guirassy and Solanke.
Guirassy's an interesting one because he's had an unbelievable season in the Bundesliga, but he's 28. This is like his first real good season.
He did score 12 in the previous season.
Yeah, but 12 is good, but I think if he had scored 12 this season, I don't think we're looking at him.
Yeah, 12 in his first season for Stuttgart. Second season, absolutely smashing it.
Yes, but he is 28. So I don't know if he's the kind of option we'll be looking for. Mate, look, that also comes with its risks. 15
million release clause as well. That's right up Daniel Levy's street.
That is right. That is true. So that does as well tell me maybe we'll seriously consider that just because of the release clause. Solanke, I think, is a good option, but is going to be probably one of the most expensive.
How old is he now?
25? He's still fairly young, and obviously he's a good aerial threat. I've been really impressed with his continual progression in the Premier League. I think he would be a good player, but I also don't know if he's better than the other ones on that list. And then there's Santiago Jimenez, who obviously plays out in Holland. Another one, he's young, so he's got a good age, also having a breakout season. But as you said, there's question marks over whether he's a clinical finisher. And as well, it's only one good season in Holland, and we've seen a lot of players come from Holland with one good season and really flop. You think of Vincent Janssen, you think of Alfonso Alves from Middlesbrough,
Mateo Kezman.
But then again, you've had players like Van Nistelrooy who've come from Holland as well and smashed it out. So you can't completely rule it out. But again, it's a bit of a risk. So I would be happy with any of the options, to be honest. I would be excited about all of them. I think the best one I like is Gyokeres because he's got that goal-scoring one, and he gets assists as well. And also, he's done it. I know it's only the Championship, but he has done it in England for a couple of seasons at Coventry. So I do like the look of him.
He's big, physical as well.
Is it
good in the air?
Is he going to be the most expensive / also a lot of competition? Openda I really like, but I like him. I feel like he's technically not the best.
If we're going for someone from Leipzig, it has to be Benjamin Sesko. I mean, he's the one that I think that would fit us the best in terms of bringing in a different kind of option that can do it on the ground, in the air, running in behind. I think Sesko can do everything. Everything that we need from a striker, he can do.
Openda, I think he reminds me a lot of Callum Wilson, just a physical guy who doesn't get bullied, but he's much more of a threat in behind. He doesn't like his back to goal that much. And I feel like as well, when he's like through one-on-one, he's quite a good finisher, but when he's asked to like use a bit of technical ability, he can be found wanting.
How old is he as well?
He's still young.
He's really young.
Yeah,
so,
he is young. So
he can progress that side of his game.
Player. But I don't know. I don't know if he's any better than Callum Wilson, to be honest.
Really? Not better than Callum Wilson?
Well, Callum Wilson's a good striker.
He is a good striker, but Openda's being talked about as like one of the next big strikers in Europe.
I don't know if he's that good.
Really?
And Wilson is a 20-goal a season striker at his best. When
that's true.
And you saw him last season. I'm not saying that's not meant to be a diss. I'm just saying that's the kind of level I see him at.
Does this tell you, though, with all this news coming out from Paul O'Keefe, that they are planning for Sonny to be a left winger next season? That's what it says to me. If they're looking to bring in two strikers, if Richarlison leaves, then surely that means Sonny's supposed to be our left winger next season.
Well, that does worry me, because does that mean we're not going to go big on a winger? Because if we don't go big on a winger, and that pretty much tells me we're going to be in a similar situation on the wing to this season, and I don't know if that's good enough.
Yeah, I still think they will bring in a winger, but I would prefer to focus heavily on the wings. Well, I think we need heavy investment on all three positions in the forward options, to be honest. But I agree with you. I think Gyokeres is my number one target. But I think the most likely targets are probably Ivan Toney or Sergio Guirassy. I see Guirassy with a 15 million release clause. I feel like Daniel Levy will find that way too hard to give up. And Ivan Toney, with a lot of big clubs, seem to have distanced themselves from him. And him being, they're talking about 30, 40 million. I probably think it'll be a bit more, maybe 45 to 50. But I think that's well within Spurs' range.
I wouldn't be that mad at Toney, to be honest. I think it would be a good signing. And I do think... I know there's a lot of people question his attitude and stuff like that, but I think if he comes to a big club like Tottenham, I do think he's going to really know that it's a big move for him, and this is his shot at the big time. And I don't think he's going to want to screw it up with stupid antics like he has been doing.
I hope so. I hope that's true, but just his antics in the past just put me off a little bit. That's just the only reason. Like,
if working for Arsenal as well, I don't like that.
Yeah, and he said he's an Arsenal fan growing up. All these stuff that he did to Brentford, where he should be really just thankful for Brentford. I just don't like players that do that. Like, why, just knuckle down, focus on your football, and a big club will come for you. There's no need to twerk for them like that in the press. Like, I hate that. And I just feel that just stinks of a bad attitude problem for me. And I think like if he comes here, I'll obviously back it, and I'll be happy that he comes in because I think he's a top player. But just those things just don't sit right with me, and I'd prefer to go for other targets ahead of him. Let's talk about Riccardo Calafiori now. Tutto Sport saying that Tottenham have moved to sign Riccardo Calafiori. AC Milan, Bayer Leverkusen, Juventus and Napoli have all shown interest in signing the defender too. Bologna want 25 million euros to sell him, and I think that's a really fair price to bring in someone that can cover two positions for us at left centre-back and at left-back.
That's ridiculously cheap, I would think. I don't know if his contract situation is a problem or something, but that seems too good to be true. There's talks. I've seen a lot of people who follow Serie A, and I respect their opinions. And on Twitter, some of them even claim he might be the best defender in Serie A.
2027.
So I don't know why he's so cheap. And Bologna have just reached Champions League, guaranteed. So I'll be surprised if that's the final price, considering all the clubs you've mentioned are in for him. Considering, unless he's like really overrated and Bologna think actually he's not as good as everyone thinks he is. A lot of people who I respect talk about Serie A think he's one of the best in the league this season. I don't know if he got in Team of the Year or not, but he's obviously had an amazing year. For us, he would be very valuable because of his versatility, and I think he could even break into the first team for sure. And at 25 million, considering the price that is banded about for a lot of defenders, seems like an absolute steal. Like really, like too cheap.
Maybe a club like Bologna just need the money. Maybe, I don't think I've ever seen them in Europe in previous years. This is their first year in the Champions League.
But maybe all those teams supposedly in for him, unless they're not.
Yeah, I know it's a good point, but I mean, if that is true, I'm snapping their hands off to get him in.
For sure.
Snapping their hands off. But it is very interesting why he is only going for 25 million. And last but not least, we're going to talk about a left-back called Bradley Loco. Peter O'Rourke saying that Tottenham were amongst Premier League clubs who sent scouts to watch Brest left-back Bradley Loco last Friday as they weigh up a summer move for him. Interesting target. I don't know much about him, to be fair, but he has played the majority of games for Brest this season. They are currently 4th in Ligue 1, having a very good season this year. I'm not sure if that puts them in the Champions League or not. I'm not sure where Champions League is in the French league. Is it top 3 or top 4?
I think it's top 4 still.
So if it's
no, wait, because they're an 18-team league. I think it might be top 3. I don't think they got that extra space.
However, he has played 33 games this season, 3 assists. He's fairly young, 22 years of age, only capped at under 23 level for France. Do you know much about him?
I haven't seen him play too much. All I know is he's more of a left back who does like to stay wide and likes to get forward in that way. Obviously quite young. Seems to be a player that a lot of people think could have a bright future at left back. I think he's been linked with some of the top teams in France as well, as a player with could make that step there. I don't know if he's maybe he could be a good backup to a doggy, or maybe competition for a doggy. I would prefer, obviously, Calafiori because of his versatility. I don't think he can play centre-back as well, but maybe he could be a good backup left-back.
Market value of 10 million on transfer market. But yeah, we'll have to see how things pan out over the summer. But it's nice to see, reliable journalists like Paul O'Keefe and Fabrizio Romano talking about Spurs transfers in a positive light this early as well. So that is your Tottenham update. Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts regarding all the news stories we brought to you today. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always, come on you Spurs.